Recording in progress.
Honorable members and everybody else on this platform, we take this opportunity to greet you this morning, to welcome you to this meeting of the Portfolio Committee on International Relations. Can you beam the agenda for us so that we can adopt it, Lubabalo?
Noted, Chairperson.
Thank you, honorable members. Its opening and welcome apologies briefing by the Department on Diplomatic Relations of 25 years with China. Closing remarks and closure. Do we have a move for adoption of the agenda?
Honorable
Thank you, Honorable Nkosi.
I will
Honorable
second.
Faba.
Second.
Baya Danki, Honorable Faba. Thank you very much for that. Give us apologies, please, Lubabalo.
Thank you, Chairperson. We have 3 apologies, Chair. The first one is from the Minister. She's attending Cabinet meeting. And the second one is from Deputy Minister Potters. He is also attending Cabinet Committee meetings. And the third one is from Honorable Mawela, who's not present due to exams. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Deputy Minister Mashego Dlamini, we take this opportunity as always to welcome you to the Portfolio Committee. Today we are going to be receiving from your side, on behalf of the department, an update report on the 25 years of relations economically and politically between ourselves and China. We welcome South Africans who may be following the proceedings of this Portfolio Committee meeting today on various platforms provided by Parliament as part of deepening democracy, transparency, and ensuring public participation. We also welcome the media if it's here on this platform. We welcome some of the ambassadors that I see that they have logged in here today, the staff from the department, and we also welcome the staff from the Portfolio Committee on International Relations. Deputy Minister Mashego Dlamini, I'm now going to hand over to you to lay down the ground for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think I'm audible.
Yes, you are visible and audible.
Thank you very much. Well, Chairperson, my greetings to yourself, the Chairperson of the committee, members of the Portfolio Committee, members of the public, ladies and gentlemen. I am indeed honored to present to the committee some insight on South Africans' relations with the People's Republic of China, particularly on the topic of the Africa and China, with emphasis on deepening political mutual trust and on significant achievement and challenges in this period. As you will agree with me, honorable members, that there is an ongoing shift in the global arena of political and economic influence towards the East and increasingly the global South. In this regard, China's relative influence and power over the past 25 years have increased quite dramatically. China's own foreign policy stance has evolved to become more ambitious and more assertive, which has resulted in China taking strong positions vis-à-vis regional, global issues in promotion of its own vision of the future. With the center of economic gravity shifting eastwards, South Africa must consequently factor into its foreign policy the fact of a rising China that will, for the foreseeable future, have an important impact on global affairs. South Africa and China's bilateral relations, as underpinned by the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership and the 10-year Strategic Program on Cooperation 2020 and 2029, has been maintained in 2023 through the delivery of the 5 structured bilateral mechanisms and several high-level engagement and events. The bilateral political relationship is close and characterized by political solidarity as it continues to be delivered in various areas of technical cooperation, including trade, investment, energy, mining, infrastructure development, education, science and technology, and tourism. Chairperson, the multilateral relations have been promoted through consultations on issues affecting both the developing world and the global south, as well as on global challenges such as peace and security, development, and global inequality. South Africa and China regularly provide political support for each other's views on global challenges, including calls to reform the global governance system to make it more representative, equitable, and relevant to address current geopolitical tensions. China is also a strong partner of African True initiatives such as Forum of China-Africa Cooperation called FOCAC. Regarding trade, Chairperson, China remains South Africa's largest global trading partner in terms of total volumes of bilateral trade, with a total bilateral trade for 2022 at 614 billion rand. However, this does not come with a negative trade balance of 155 billion rand in China's favor, which is of concern to the South African government. But as I speak to you, Chairperson, now, the two sides are seeking ways to address this skewed trade structure, as you're quite aware that we had a state visit of the president of China in August. So we are looking forward to balance this trade as we are discussing amongst ourselves. Thank you very much, Chairperson. But at this point in time, I will allow, if you permit me, Chairperson, I will hand over to our DG to really do a detailed presentation on the matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. Over to the department.
Good morning, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Deputy Minister, honorable members. The detailed presentation will be made by Ms. Zodwa Lali, who is the acting DDG for the branch. Over to you.
Thank you very much, DG. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister. Greetings to the Honorable Chair of our Portfolio Committee and to the members and everyone else who's tuned into this presentation. Our Deputy Minister has already outlined the framework on which this relationship is based. So what we will be doing as the branch tasked with the day-to-day management of this relationship is to just flesh out and unpack some of the issues. The structure is that we will go through a brief overview of our relations with China. We will also take this, the committee through the structured bilateral mechanisms that we have with China. We'll also go into a bit of detail about the trade and investment relations. Then we'll touch on how we relate on multilateral issues, highlight some recent achievements, point out to some challenges as per the brief, and also just do a reminder of our foreign policy approach. This year marks 25 years of diplomatic relations between South Africa and China. And this has been built up over the years, as the Deputy Minister has already indicated, where we now have a comprehensive strategic partnership and the 10-year strategic program of cooperation. And this covers areas of bilateral technical cooperation, trade and investment promotion, tourism, education and training, science and technology, infrastructure and development. And there are some key infrastructure projects that are underway, which fall under the rubrics of the Belt and Road Initiative, and also speak to our economic recovery, post-COVID economic recovery program. And if I can just name but a few, that would be the Mzimvubu Water Project in the Eastern Cape. The Small Harbours Development Project is set to take off in Port Nolloth, Port St. John's, Port Shepstone. There's the integration of the Hisense Industrial Park into the Atlantic Special Economic Zone. We also have a program on the mega focus schools, two of which are to be funded. And there's also attention being paid to poverty alleviation through the Poverty Alleviation Village project. Relations are anchored on key pillars, and these are close solidarity politically. And I think because the brief also covers trust between the two countries, it's important to point out that it takes years to build a relationship of trust. And that is based both on structural pillars, but also on relations between leaders, because chemistry between leaders of any countries always leads to better relations. And if there is a sense that each party can trust the other, it really opens the doors to more and better cooperation on other levels. And this is seen at multilateral fora, at the UN, G20, BRICS, and FOCAC. I would also like to state up front, or rather remind, that South Africa adheres to the One China policy, which means that the territories of Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau, and Tibet are inalienable parts of China. And we also practice non-interference in each other's sovereign states' internal affairs. On to the structured bilateral mechanisms. The reason we like to highlight these is they provide a way to measure the achievements, because moving in an ad hoc fashion from one project to another, becoming episodic, makes it a bit difficult to track progress. But where we have structured bilaterals across several spheres, as we will show here, we have a way of tracking progress over time. And the one that we have the PPEM at a ministerial level, which is headed by the Ministries of Sports, Arts and Culture and Higher Education. It met in February. This year it was an incoming visit. We also have a strategic dialogue at the level of Deputy Minister. Deputy Minister Mashigo Dlamini traveled to China in May to go and service this relationship. And in addition to holding the strategic dialogue, also engaged other political role players and had an extensive program focused on economic relations, which saw her visiting key industries from Shenzhen to Shanghai to Beijing. At senior officials level, we also have the JTEC. And on the margins of BRICS in August, we had a very successful state visit. And as I've already indicated, it is events like state visits which serve to concretize relations and build further trust. We also have a binational commission with China, a BNC, which is at the level of the Deputy President, and our Deputy President traveled to Beijing to hold this very important mechanism, and also took time to go to Shanghai and participate in the Import-Export Expo, where South Africa had a very strong showing. Now, going into some statistics to look at trade, as we've indicated, the total volume of bilateral trade in 2022 was 614 billion rand. And if one looks at the trade balance, we can see that it is in China's favor by about 155 billion. One could look at this several ways. The one we choose to focus on is the challenge and opportunities it presents to South Africa to double down and really increase efforts of creating access to the China market so that South African goods and services, especially value-added goods and services, find a way to that market in order to tilt this relationship in a positive way. We cannot blame the other side for being better at trade than we are. It just means that we need to pull our socks up. And just to do a comparison again across the region, on trade with other countries, we've listed here our total trade with Japan, with Korea, with Australia and New Zealand. And one can see that by far and away, the trade that we conduct with China is very significant. If we look at investments, we can say that China ranks at about 6th in terms of FDI out of the traditional major economies that are invested in South Africa, such as the EU, the US, Japan, and Korea and India. And there's more local manufacturing value added and job creating investments by China that we need to encourage. The investment footprint includes portfolio investments, such as in Standard Bank. We have Chinese interests in mining. We also have in the automotive sector quite a strong showing of Chinese brands. And with the shift from internal combustion engines towards electric vehicles, this is an area of trade that we are really looking into, because right now the leader in electric vehicles worldwide is China. And in this relationship, there are some concerns that when engaging at the level of both the executive, at officials levels, and even business to business, some issues that the Chinese business undertaking business in South Africa raise. Some of them, which are sometimes reflected by other trading partners, include adherence to our BEE. They do ask South Africa to pay attention to safety and security. They are concerned about the volatility of the rand because they invest in renminbi, operate in our currency, and take their money out in US dollars. So the volatility is an issue. The challenges we face on the energy front also impact these investors because they impact manufacturing and distribution. And in terms of the ease of doing business, we also need to pay a bit more attention to the visa regime and make it such that it enables the good guys to come in, that it encourages investment while keeping the bad guys out. Now, if we look at the investment footprint, we can show you some brands that I'm sure are familiar to the people watching this presentation. Naspers is very strong, is a very big investor in China. Huawei has a very, very strong presence in South Africa, as indicated. Standard Bank also, there's a 20% stake in Standard Bank by ICBC of China. Hisense in the white goods and ICT and television space is very, very strong. And again, as I've indicated, in the automotive sector. Anglo-American also has a strong presence, which is growing in China. Discovery has a very strong partnership, which is very successful. They operate in China out of Shanghai. F&B is there, Sasol is there, Seppi, Submiller. So the relationship, as I've indicated, is quite strong. And there are very many recognizable brands that we can show that indicate the closeness of the trading relationship. On the multilateral front, we do cooperate, and we do this within the ambit of the United Nations and of the G20, where on the margins of these summits, the leaders do hold bilateral talks to engage on issues of mutual concerns. I don't need to say anything more about BRICS. We are still growing in the success of the very big BRICS summit that we hosted just recently in August. FOCAC is also an ongoing program. And the one area of commonality that we share with this country is a need to make the global governance system fair. Recent achievements, if you could look at highlights, some we've already indicated, the people-to-people exchange mechanism, strategic dialogue, Economic and Trade Committee, state visit, BRICS, on the margins of which there was the state visit and the round table, and the Binational Commission, recently co-chaired by Deputy President. Those are some of the legal instruments, MOUs, and agreements that were signed during the state visit. And as we're aware from the regular briefings that are given by the Minister of Electricity, China is a strong and reliable partner in assisting South Africa to exit the energy challenge we face. We've already indicated the issues around trade and on market access, especially regarding agricultural exports. There are many, many opportunities and low-hanging fruits in the area of tea, of fruits, meat. As we know, we are very strong in lamb and beef. So that is a market. And as we face headwinds in other markets globally, which are traditional to South Africa, we are always reminded of the size of the Chinese market, which is where we perhaps need to look in order to de-risk, especially in the area of citrus. We've already indicated the challenges. And again, as in any relationship, countries will always put their national interests first, but we do not engage in win-lose relationships, but rather focus on areas of commonalities. And we do also want to say that as a partner globally, China has made a very positive impact, because if one looks politically at the rapprochement recently between some of the countries in the Gulf region, they have played a very, very big role in bringing closer the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Iran. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy Minister or DGE, are there any elements you may want to amplify before we give members the chance to interrogate the presentation?
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Well, on the issue of the trade imbalance, I think, as I indicated, there are processes that are underway. The first process that we have raised with the Chinese is the red meat ban that has been taken so long, but recently they have really unbanned our red meat now because of our processes in terms of dealing with the foot and mouth that we had as an outbreak here in South Africa. The second issue that we are also discussing is really to really ask the Chinese to really put a basket of commodities that we can really negotiate and discuss, because as it stands now, we discuss per item, per commodity, as you're quite aware that we have already signed for avocado, only avocado in August. So we are now had to take another fruit or take another vegetable. So it's something that we are discussing, that let's put a basket of everything and negotiate and going forward. So we're on discussion on that, and the Deputy President has raised it recently. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. Members of the Portfolio Committee, there's the presentation. Let's interrogate it. It's now opportunity for hands. We will start with the Honorable Willem Faber himself.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning to the presenters and the rest of the committee. I hope you have a very nice day. Chairperson, yes, thanks for this presentation from Deputy Minister and the presenters on the relationship with China and trade. Chairperson, as you know, I've been on this committee since 2009-10, and with trade and industry and DIRCO, we've had some of these meetings together in the select committee a few times. Now, I do understand that Minister Patel already that time, specifically when we talk about trade between us exporting to China and China exporting to us, we obviously know there's a huge deficit. And one of that reasons that we could have actually used to our advantage as South Africa was on iron ore and on manganese, that we could have our own meltery on the West Coast, and from there export effectively a more processed product that would have been much financially much better for South Africa. Now, I know there was things in the pipeline. I don't know, maybe the minister or the presenter can give us more info on that, but that would have significantly changed those figures as well. And there was also the situation where China at some stage did not want to import our iron ore because it was dirtier and they got it from Australia. Chairperson, and then just a last comment, and this is not that I'm sucking it out of my fingers, but we're talking about the East, the upcoming economy. Chairperson, it is actually common knowledge that China is actually having a big lump in their economy, and that the new kids on the block is actually India. Now, this is I look at international news and all these international economists, etc., and it is very clear that the future is, the next hype is being in India and not China anymore. China is having a bad time at this stage. Now, I'm not at any time suggesting that we should reduce our trade with China. I am just saying that we should maybe also look at other ventures like India that will in the next 5 years or 10 years, because we shouldn't just look at the next year or the next 2 years, but in the future will be the big players. So, and they are also part of the BRICS. So, Chair, this is just input from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Faber. Ndade Ngosi.
Thank you, Chairperson, and the department and the Deputy Minister. Welcome the inputs and presentation. Chair, I just want to check on the slide indicating PPEM. The presenter indicated that dialogue is led by the Minister and the Minister of Education and Sports and Recreation. I just want to check from them, where does the DTIC feature at that level? I do understand that at other levels it does feature, but I'm a bit concerned that at that level it doesn't feature. Related to that is, we have raised this point before. What are the structured internal mechanisms in the country between DTIC in particular and the department to ensure that penetration of those markets, particularly China, happens in a way that the political informs the economic. In other words, the negotiations that DECO does feed into what DTIC does and vice versa. And also, do we have a trade attaché in China? Because from our experience, DTIC has withdrawn most of its trade attachés in our diplomatic footprints. I do understand on multilateral relations, the fact that the presenter indicates that this is a matter that, particularly as far as BRICS is concerned, that they are not delving on. But I want to check, Chair, three things. Firstly, to what extent do our decisions cohere with China in as far as our participation in multilateral fora? Secondly, do we have a mechanism of ensuring that we balance our various views? I'm very aware that we will not agree absolutely on each and every issue, and in fact we may differ fundamentally on many issues, but at least is there a mechanism that ensures that there's coherence in as far as addressing pertinent international issues, like we've indicated, was indicated by the Deputy Minister on the need for the reform of multilateral representative institutions. And in relation to that, the third point would be to what extent does that coherence resonate with other like-minded participants in those fora? I'm talking in view, Chair, that of the fact that we are part of ASEAN, China is part of ASEAN, we are part of a number of South-South alliances and fora where we both participate independently as countries. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nkosi. Sis Emma, Honorable Power.
Thanks, Chairperson. Thank you for the presentation. We, of course, welcome the trade relationship with China. It's a very important relationship, and it's one that we must take care of and actively nurture. I'm just interested in some of the more political statements that have been made in the presentation. And so I've got two questions, Chair. In regards to the concluding statements made by the presenter in respect of China's role in bringing Iran closer to South Africa, can the presenter or the DG please provide further details on this, specifically outlining what benefit a closer relationship between South Africa and Iran will have for the South African economy and our standing in the international community, and of course, in the context of the presentation, what role is being referred to in terms of China facilitating the strengthening of this relationship. And then secondly, we've made it very clear that the DA absolutely supports the necessary reform of, and I must also add, long overdue reform.
How's Emma? You're frozen. How's Emma? You got frozen a little bit, so just go a little bit.
Can you hear me now, Chairperson?
Yeah, you are clear, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So I was saying that we've been very clear that certainly from where we sit, we absolutely support the reform of global governance institutions. It's long overdue and it is necessary. But it was also mentioned in this presentation that China will play a constructive role in assisting these objectives. And so I was wondering if the presenter or the Director General can perhaps outline some of the specific objectives and conversations that are being pursued between South Africa and China bilaterally, of course, noting that China is already a permanent member of the Security Council, in order to achieve these goals, with the outcome, of course, being greater representation of the Global South on global governance structures and institutions such as the Bretton Woods structures. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Powell. Honorable Nkosi and Honorable Powell, if you can lower your hands. Honorable Mpanza.
No, thanks, Chairperson. I also welcome the presentation led by the Deputy Minister and the DG of the department, and the manner in which the presenter has also articulated the presentation itself. Chair, I just want to raise two issues. One issue is that I know that it might not be directly fall under international relations and cooperation, but I would like the department, maybe in consultation with the Department of Employment, I don't know, employment and some things, I forgot the other aspect. Chair, that there has been a perception, let me say it's a perception, because I cannot for sure say is what is happening, that in terms of the labor relations with the Chinese companies here in South Africa, there seems to be no good labor relations adherence in terms of the Labor Relations Act, in line with the the conditions of employment and all those labor-related legislation, that there seems to be a violation by most of the Chinese companies or businesses who employ South Africans, and it's an issue that even labor unions and trade unions, they are also grappling with. Now, I just want to check from the department that have they engaged the Department of Employment to find out whether there is some engagement in trying to address that issue, because any company or any country that comes and do business, they must comply and adhere to the legislation that is existing in a particular country. Now, if there is that perception that some, not all, but there is this non-adherence and non-compliance with the labor relations legislations that are in the country, so it needs to be dealt with. Second, Chair, is that the issue of the relationship with China is a good one, and it's welcome, since also China is one of the emerging powerful economies in the world, but also is part of BRICS. The issue of the dying of the textile industry because of the cheap prices that the Chinese companies come with when it comes to textile things like clothes and things like that. Now, what are the interventions that are put in place that, as much as we have the relationship, but it does not then be a relation that be at the expense of another country, in that it then kills or destroy the industry that is been very vibrant and also assisting in the issue of employing local employees, actually then assisting in addressing the triple challenges of unemployment, poverty, and equality. So that I just want to check that what are the interventions that are put in place. And again, maybe this might not be the international relations itself. Maybe it can fall under trade and industry department. But I believe we're one government. We don't work in silos. And in terms of intergovernmental relations, there must be discussions and engagement between the departments, and actually to make sure that national interest of South Africa, whether in terms of economic or political or socially, is also safeguarded. So lastly, Chair, then China is also, because of the challenge that we have here in South Africa of lack of skills in certain areas, particularly in technical and engineering and those kind of skills. Sometimes there is also a view that when Chinese companies are coming to South Africa, maybe to build infrastructural projects which involve and require those skills, they bring the Chinese people or personnel. But then the question is that what is China also doing making sure that as these projects are taking place, but also they also capacitate the local employees, and they also assist in South Africa in addressing the shortage of skills in those fields. Thanks very much, Chairperson.
Are you done, Ntatempanza?
Yes, I'm done, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we're done with the hands. You can lower your hand, Ntatempanza. From my side, Deputy Minister and your team, the story remains the same. If you look at the preamble of the Constitution of South Africa, it talks about the injustices of the past. And one of the injustices of the past, actually the most important injustice of the past for South Africa, in as far as I'm concerned, is around the economy. You can look at the statistics now, you can Google them now, and look at the ownership patterns of our economy in South Africa. After 30 years, it remains in the hands of our fellow South African who happen to have benefited from the apartheid and colonial system. So in doing the reconciliation going forward, as Mandela said, as the new generation, we will have to bequeath to future generations a South Africa that is different in terms of patterns of ownership. BEE is losing grip because those who benefited from colonial apartheid system economically are challenges in the court, and they are succeeding in the courts. What it means for Black people is that we are going to bequeath to the future generations economic patterns that may actually be worse than during the apartheid period. My request, Honorable Deputy Minister, you see that list that the department provided of the companies that are investing correctly so in China on behalf of South Africa. If possible, please give us the entire list, because just on that 8 or 9 that you have shown, they are controlled by South Africans who have benefited from colonial apartheid system. All that list. Which means that the Black African government is maintaining status quo economically. And we are not, as a government, pushing sufficiently the agenda to make sure that these investments that take place in China is done by Black people, so that later on along the way, both Black and white, we are now well off economically. They can use their economic power to build an economically reconciled, non-racial, non-sexist South Africa, which will not face the danger of instability because people are hungry, they are a majority, they don't have food to eat, they can't afford transport, clothes, all these other amenities that we do. Now, I have a suggestion. These big companies in China, maybe top 50, that are doing trade with South Africa, why can't we say to them, instead of us exporting, for instance, minerals to you, come to South Africa and build the industries in South Africa so that we can industrialize our country. They bring their own capital here. The issue of labor, we can discuss it. As Honorable Mpanza was saying, those discussions can be entered into. They must come and develop here in South Africa so that the exports from here, which will be win-win for China and South Africa, can be exports not only to China, but to the entire world, because the minerals are in South Africa and they will be processed here. Not only the minerals, the agricultural products, pharmaceuticals, and all these things that are happening here. I think if in our discussions with China in the context of BRICS, begin to take that direction, and we show them that one of the capital accumulation objectives in South Africa must be to build a non-racial South Africa, where Black and white live together. But you can't do that if you don't infuse that with the economy, with commerce, so that Black and white South Africa can work together, not only on cultural things and so on, but commercially, economically, broadly, in developing South Africa. That's the type of South Africa we will bequeath to future generations. And the state, in this case, it's DERCO, must begin on our behalf to introduce that discussion. And I'm happy the Chinese ambassador is on the platform. Comrade Twele is here. We must begin to introduce those discussions with our Chinese friends so that we can tilt the scale in as far as commerce and economy broadly is concerned here in South Africa. If we don't do that, we are going to maintain the status quo, using the state resources to maintain and grow the status quo. And I don't even want to contemplate what will happen to us in future if we don't rise to the occasion. I'm done. Thank you. Over to you, Deputy Minister and the DG and your team.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'll hand over to the DG.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Thank you, Honorable Chair. I'll answer some questions, Honorable Chair, and then my colleagues will pitch in on the areas that I have missed on. I think, Honorable Chair, your comments ended with the issues that Honorable Faber raised around the need for beneficiation and the need for a more equal and balanced trade regime. And I think that is a discussion that needs to be had. So what we do in our engagements with the Chinese, as the Deputy Minister has pointed out, is always looking at how do we create the balances in our trade relationship. Obviously, we engage with it from a political perspective, but what we also do is we engage with trade and industry and others. Chair, if I may recommend that just based on the comment that the Chair has made, it may be very useful, given the questions also that Honorable Faber asked, for a joint committee on with trade and industry and also the national treasury, because a lot of the issues are raised, issues of beneficiation, trade policy, for example, the government industry issues that was also raised by, I think, Honorable Mpanza, does require a discussion like that, not only in terms of our relationships with China, but also with other jurisdictions. But those are, in essence, what DIRCO can do there, Chair, is to facilitate the dialogue and discussions. But the mechanisms are essentially domestic economic policy issues and domestic trade policy. So obviously, as the Chair's pointed out, we do have a role in trying to facilitate that. But it will be useful if the portfolio committee could also try and consider having a joint discussion on these kinds of issues. Chair, the comment about China is the second largest economy. It's still self-defined as a developing economy. But Honorable Fab is correct that India is growing, and there's projections that in the next decade or so, India will be in the top 3 globally, largest economies globally. Our view is that we must engage in mutually beneficial relationships with both China and India, and I think we're well positioned to do so. So we will take that advice and continue to do that. Chair, the reform of the UN Security Council has been raised by both Honorable Nkosi and Honorable Powell. In terms of the Security Council, China is a member of the P5, and like many other members of the P5 have historically been resistant to changing the Security Council framework. But at the last BRICS conference, there was a commitment by all the BRICS members, which includes 2 of the P5 members, that they will now move to supporting the initiatives by South Africa and others around text-based negotiations, so that we can speed up the processes at the UN around Security Council reform, so that it becomes more equitable, both in terms of its composition, but also in the manner in which it makes its decisions. So we are heartened by this. We've also seen in recent years the US making similar commitments around reform. And bearing in mind that while the P5 may disagree on many issues, historically they've tended to agree on keeping the status quo around on the structure of the Security Council. The comment around Saudi Arabia, I think Honorable and Iran, I think Honorable Powell may have misheard the presentation from my colleague. I think she meant that China played a significant role in bringing together Saudi Arabia and Iran in the Gulf region. And I think that is the comment that was made in the presentation. So they did play a role in bringing together historically what was a fractious relationship in the Gulf states. And the comment was made just about the role that China plays in the diplomatic space. Yeah, I think Honorable Panza raised a number of issues, labor relations. Just to say that my colleague may come in on this in a bit more detail, but Minister Nesi has been engaging with some companies around ensuring that not only adherence to our local laws around labor relations matters are adhered to, but also to foster better relationships even for South Africans who work in China. So, but my colleagues will come in on that one. And Honorable Chair, I think that covers the questions that people have asked that I can answer. My colleagues, Ambassador Lally, if there's anything that I've missed out, please come in.
Thank you very much, DG. I think that I will just request Madam Mvebe, Director for China, to just give details specifically on the labor relations issue and Huawei, and what Minister Nesi is undertaking.
Thank you so much, DDG. Honorable Chairperson, just on the Huawei is an example. Minister Nesi engaged the Chinese embassy and together with Huawei last year, and they have a 3-year agreement to change the structure of the employees that are in Huawei in South Africa. And as a result, Huawei played a very key role during the jobs fair in April 2022, where Chinese companies in South Africa employed 1,000 South Africans and undertook to employ the further 19 in the next 3 years. So it was just an example in that regard. Thank you so much.
And if I may, just to respond to the chair's concerns about the structure of the economy. As the DG has said, it would assist greatly if the departments that play a lead here, which would be trade and industry and national treasury, could perhaps get together and under the leadership of the various portfolio committees, really look at the structural impediments to tilting the share of the economic pie by previously disadvantaged South Africans. And if I may also mention, maybe Deputy Minister Mashego Dlamini may go into it, that during her visit to China in May for the strategic dialogue, the engagements that she had, especially with manufacturers of these panels, solar power panels, for really making a positive impact on our energy crisis, were very extensive. And there was a lot of interest, not just to export, but to actually come in and manufacture in South Africa, train South Africans in the ways of manufacturing these high value goods which are required. And just another one that we have a keen eye on together with colleagues at trade and industry is the whole area of semiconductors, because we know that manufacturing, especially in the automotive sector, is dependent on these semiconductors, and it's a worldwide phenomenon. We are part of global manufacturing and supply chains, and we need to play our role and do our fair share. However, if we can pay attention to issues of our domestic policy, as the DG has said, we will go further in making our economy something we can bequeath to future generations.
Thank you, Chair. That's it from us. Over to you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I just wanted to confirm what Honorable Nkosi has indicated in terms of the sending of attaches from the economic side. Of course, the one in China at Shanghai is completing his tour of duty by December. So it means going forward, we're not going to have any attache on the trade and industry in that regard. So we have requested the minister to speak to really look at this matter, because in many countries, of course, they didn't officials. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, DM Mashego Dlamini. Thank you very much. I want to thank the honorable members for their constructive engagement with the presentation on our bilateral relations as far as trade is concerned with the People's Republic of China. The staff for having prepared for this meeting on both sides, both the executive and parliament, South Africans who were part of these proceedings. Ambassador Twele, thank you very much, my bro, for joining the meeting this morning and afternoon on your side there. I'm sure you have taken note of the issues that have been raised, and we know that you will act on these issues. We are now, honorable members, checking if there's announcements. Lubabalo.
Thank you, Chairperson. We do not have announcements, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, honorable members. This is how we come to the end of the meeting of today. It was a very productive meeting. Enjoy your afternoon. Ambani kahle, siyabonga, siyabulela.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Спасибо, спасибо. Спасибо, хорошо. Спасибо, хорошо.
Thank you, Chairperson from Beijing. Thank you very much.